This is African American History is American History. Welcome. I'm your host, Harlan Kearsley. This program's goal is to foster understanding, promote discussion, and expand knowledge through stories of historical events, bios of unsung heroes, as well as timely and relevant news stories which will paint a vivid picture of the effects of segregation, discrimination, and bigotry on the lives of both blacks and whites. Comparisons will be made between the many racially fractured periods of American history and what's going on right now. Slavery was abolished just 150 years ago. Jim Crow only 50 years ago. Yet stop and frisk, voter ID, stand your ground, income inequality, and a host of other current problems are proof that their detrimental effects continue to be felt, and that the struggle for equal rights for all must continue. Here in his art studio located in Newton Center, Massachusetts, just about 25 minutes from Boston, I spoke to him about his current series of paintings called The Black West. Now, how much research did you do before you started painting the series?
Oh, well, the research came mainly from reading, doing a lot of reading. I got several books on the Black West and stuff. And I used to use those when I was teaching school, take those books into school. And in the school I was teaching in at that time was predominantly a white school, very few black students, maybe 2 or 3. Some were medical students who were bused in. And out of all those students, the only student who was really interested was one black student, young black student, who was probably the most troublesome student I ever had. And when I brought that book out, he just soaked it up. And so it seemed very important to me to I gave him the book to take home, and it changed his whole way of acting out in school, and that was the most important thing. So I began to do more and more research, getting books, and went out west, went to Oklahoma and the Black Cowboy Museum, and did a lot of research out there. And so I was surprised by all the things that I learned out there, and the people, learned the cowboy handshake and all that, mm-hmm. and so it was quite interesting to go out there and see all that.
And that student that you gave the book to that changed his whole outlook, whatever happened to him? Do you know?
I don't know, because I was teaching in middle school at that time, and he I don't know if he even got to the high school. I had spoken to his mother, and his mother was very excited that he was dealing with this, but I never heard from him again. I don't know about him. So.
And when was this? What year was this?
This is probably in 74 or 5, something like that, around in there.
Well, that'd be interesting to find out whatever became of him. Who knows? Maybe he became a history teacher.
I'm not sure about that. I think he had other problems. I think his family life problems too. I don't think that his mother was really that. She was a kid herself. She was very young, very young. So I don't know. Yeah.
Now we have Justina Ford, the doctor.
Justina Ford was a doctor, and actually she was the first African American doctor in the state of Colorado. And of course she faced discrimination and stuff like that. And even though she became the first doctor out there, they wouldn't let her work in the hospital. They had her go. She often had an office at home, and she would go out, to deliver babies and stuff like that. And the house that she worked out of became the museum of black cowboys. They used that building in her house as the museum out there. And that's still there today, as far as I know. It became the Black West Museum. But she delivered Native American babies, some white babies, black babies, so Justina Ford, one of the women who really were important in the West.
Yeah.
Not only black cowboys, but and of course a lot of these people came out west from the South, out west to make their mark, and there still was a little bit of discrimination out there after a while because especially some of the men became prominent ranchers, and so there were problems there,
And there's very, very little about the women of not only just the black women of the West, but very little about white women in the West.
Right. Well, they were sort of subservient to the men, of course, Justina Ford, in her painting, the idea was to try to depict her as a doctor, female doctor, going out to care for her patients, or much like the old doctors in the 40s and making house calls. And so I show her with a big black bag, that she would carry, and put her on at that time the way they were dressed, long dresses and big hats and like that. And I remember when being out west at the museum, Black West Museum, seeing her black bag, doctor's bag on the table there, So that was and so I made that bag pretty big, and her hand is big, once again holding that bag.
This I'm not quite familiar with. The town of Boley.
Yeah, the town of Boley was founded by Abigail Barnett, an African-American woman who had Choctaw ancestors. And she founded the town of Boley in September 1904 on 80 acres of property she owned. And it became predominantly the largest African-American town in the West. The town had a newspaper called the Boley Press, and it welcomed a lot of settlers. And after a while, big business town, centrally dominated by blacks businesses, and until they became so prominent that whites kind of moved in and took over. And they had laundries and hotels and so forth. And so I didn't have a photograph of it or anything like that, but I kind of depicted what it would be like. So I had sort of like a perspective drawing of the town, the main street of the town with the saloon and the horses and people riding into the town, and a big sign, Boley. And I was showing that painting here in my studio, and this guy came in he was from Colorado, and he knew. He said, "Oh yeah, Boley's still there." He says, "I know the town,
Is it still predominantly black?
No. The whites took it over and pushed people out and whatever. He said, but the town is still there. This is probably about maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe more. And he actually, he's not that old, but he knows of the Black West Museum and places like that, and he's Caucasian. So.
Oh, Nat Love.
Yeah, Nat Love, who they called Deadwood Dick. He was an ex-slave cowboy, and he wrote about his journey from slavery to the West, and he even had this book in which he even illustrated, with little drawings in the book about his fighting with the Indians and the Custer's last stand, and how he and his cowboys could have saved Custer, but they couldn't get there in his time, They call him Deadwood Dick because they would have these shootouts, people shooting at targets, and he was excellent with a long gun and shooting at targets, and that's they call him Deadwood Dick. And he I think the name came from the fact that it would be in Deadwood, would be where they have these. It's like a contest, you know, and so. But he became a Pullman porter later on, and led a union of Pullman porters, and so in the painting, I have him with his long rifle, and in the background, kind of fading into the background, is the Pullman porters with their, Pullman hats on the trains,
Yeah, I mean, most people, even if they do know something about Nat Love, they don't know about him being a Pullman porter.
Right.
Elvira Conley.
Yeah.
And that's another
female
in the Old West. I mean,
yeah.
what can you tell me about her?
She was born as a slave in 1845 and freed at the age of 19. She retired and married an educated soldier, but when she discovered his infidelity, she left him and headed for the West. She settled in Kansas, Sheridan, Kansas. She opened her own laundry. I guess one of the most interesting things is she made decisions of best customers, because Sheridan at that time was very loyalist to her.
Yeah. So she'd pick and choose who she...
Yeah, because she needed to be friends,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the best, her best customers were Wild Bill Hickok and Buffalo Bill. And so she forged, a real friend relationship with them, and they kind of protected her,
Now, was she handy with a gun, like Mary Fields, or?
I don't think so. I never heard anything about that, but I guess the laundry was important for these people, and so she would, like make this shirts would be just right and all that stuff, I probably have more research on her someplace, but I don't have any photos of her, or just a slight portrait of her that shows her with wearing her hair back and whatever,
So what's next for this? I mean, were you gonna?
Well, I have
continue the Black West series. Or?
Yeah, I want to continue going with it, but I have, and you mentioned before, Beckworth. I want to do painting of him. He was a trapper and guide, and very prominent. And then there's another outlaw, Izzard Dart. I guess not a very good outlaw apparently, and all these two long guns and stuff like that. But I want to do one of him, and so there are a few other people, people who were pioneers going out there, took slaves from the South, and had pioneer trains going out, taking people out west to, actually advertising that we'll take you to freedom up there. There are a lot of people. Still, it's a vast concept of people that made it out west, made those kind of contributions that we don't know about,
Yeah, and they certainly don't teach it in school.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you for sharing this with us. Also let everybody know that you can view these paintings at my father's website. That's www.hkartstudio.com.
Right. Yeah.
And that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
There has been a wealth of historical information gained from the interviews conducted with people who participated in or observed past events. These narratives from seemingly everyday people must be preserved, whether through audio tapes, videotapes, or written works. Because if they're not, one day they will simply disappear forever, and future generations will be the losers. This is African American History is American History. I'm your host, Harlan Kearsley. On behalf of everyone here at African American History is American History, thank you for listening. And remember, none of us can truly embrace the future until we first confront the past. African American History is American History. Copyright H.C. Kearsley, 2015.